welcome back to another video. I don't understand for this. I just completed Stellar Blade, and I'm gonna give my non-spoiler review. Again, this is non-spoiler. I think after this, after a little bit, I will post a spoiler review. Possibly. Let me know if y'all would want a spoiler review, or y'all would just want a playthrough of the game. Let me know which one y'all would prefer. It would be a new game plus. So keep that in mind. Now, I think I'm gonna start this. Since I do want to review some games that come out every once in a while. I think I'm going to review these games based on proposing a question that I hope to answer for myself by the end of the video. And that question is the game platinum worthy? For Steam games, it will be, is the game Steam, like, all Steam achievements worthy? So, is Stellar Blade platinum worthy? For Stellar Blade, Stellar Blade is pretty damn unique. Um, it's not exactly a Souls game, even though there are a couple of bosses that really push it. Um, in particular, the final two bosses, in my opinion, are way too difficult for even just story mode. They feel like they are on hard mode. In my opinion, a couple of the later bosses are a little iffy. But in particular, the final one I had, I'm not sure, but there are multiple endings to this game. There's three, which is kind of reminds me of Bloodborne. But I don't know if there's a different final boss for the other two endings because I haven't done that. The last two bosses are really, really difficult. And if you cannot get to, at least to the end game without having to swap to story mode, you are not going to make it. If you have beaten the game on story mode up to that point, you're probably not going to be able to beat this game. Me, myself, as a Souls vet, I personally did not really feel like spending ages on a goddamn boss. So I just ended up deciding to put it to story mode, and it made the first of the last two bosses pretty easy. But that final one, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was still very difficult to the point where I'm not even sure how one would get to that point without, quite a bit of quite a bit of skill. Now I'm going to be comparing this to Nier Automata a little bit and Code Vein and a little bit of Bloodborne because I do see the similarities between this and Bloodborne way more so than I do, especially from a narrative perspective, than from Nier Automata and Code Vein. Now I'm going to be. This is. Hmm, this is a tough spot. This is a little bit closer to Code Vein in terms of shortcuts in Stellar Blade are relatively useless. Because, first, I think we're going to talk about level design. In my opinion, a lot of the shortcuts are just blatantly fucking useless. There are a lot of campsites all over the place, which are this world's version of like bonfires, lanterns, that sort of thing. They're just their resting place. However, this one has two different ones. Like, one camp is basically just a quick checkpoint that you can't come back to, which is perfectly fine with me. Then there's other ones which are major ones that are essentially the starting points of major levels. So, in my opinion, the level design is pretty damn good. A lot of it is indeed quite a bit better than in Code Vein. Code Vein, for those of you that don't know, Code Vein's level design is rough, in particular White Cathedral. Now, Nier Automata did have some frustrating areas, extremely frustrating areas. And Stellar Blade, I'm not saying it's particularly immune to this either. There are a couple of areas that aren't particularly great, but there's nothing as abysmal as the White Cathedral from Code Vein or a couple of sections in Nier Automata. And there is no slow swamp. So, hey, no Miyazaki. um, now, other than certain levels, I do want to talk about area variety. Essentially, there are 3 linear worlds. Well, I'm gonna call them worlds, but they're really, really large areas. Um, there are 3, because I'm gonna equate this to worlds, but there are 3 pretty, well, technically 4. There's about 4 pretty compact worlds, and then there's 2 really, really open worlds. The 2 really open worlds are deserts, which I'm not a huge fan of. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the concept of after humanity's wiped out or whatever, there being a bunch of desert, because that's not what would happen. As long as microbiorganisms exists, after a time, the world would look like a lush rainforest, essentially. That's basically what it would look like. It's human intervention that's causing it to look like a desert. And the only reason why I could see a war completely wiping everything into a desert is if it's nuclear. Thankfully, the 4 really constructed levels are so visually different that the big desert open areas pretty much act like a eye cleanser in a way, if you get what I mean. You know, you have the visual, you get like that little eye cleanser, and then, bam, prepares you for the next, area. There is a clip I'm going to show here of probably one of my favorite areas that you'll access pretty early on. It's not spoilery at all, so do not worry. I'm not going to put any of that shit in here. Enough time has passed in the YouTube video. We're good. But that area was, I saw that as a desert area, and I was like, oh my god. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the elements here. I am going to warn you, there are some pseudo jump scares in here if you are not prepared for it. There were several instances in this game that scared the shit out of me. But also, I don't play horror games. I might for Halloween, but it's going to take some mental preparation and some massive support for me to fucking do that to myself for my mental health. That's kind of where I have to stop talking about the visual and stuff without getting into spoilery territory. Something else I do want to talk about is the combat. The combat feels really good. However, I do have a couple of criticisms and issues with it. Number one, there's 2 sets of skills. There's burst and beta. There's a third one, but I'll get to that third one in a second. For those of you who have played the game, no, I'm not going to spoil it as far as what the names of them are. Now, the burst and the beta, right? The beta skills, I personally found only 2 of them to ever be useful. Really wish that it was sort of closer to what Spider-Man 2 was, where you could not use both, but you could not use one or the other, but you only have 4 slots and you could mix and match what those slots were. That's what I would have liked to, because I feel like some skills I generally were useless to me, but like that burst one was really good for me, so I wish I could have just, swapped them out and not have to use the different bumpers for that. The burst mode, of which I'm not going to say the name of because it is a spoiler, the burst mode is kind of underwhelming. The burst mode should be doing a lot more damage than it is. It's way too weak. Those of you that have played the game, let me know what y'all think, but in my opinion, it needs to do a fuck ton more amount of damage. And even if they make it last for shorter duration, it needs to do a lot more damage than what I'm doing, because the only real difference is that I'm invincible. That is and also technically speaking, that's not quite exactly true. Because there was an incident that I had, I'll explain in a second. Hey, this is editing me. I actually forgot to mention this in this spot, but there was an incident where there was a boss, one of the 2 final bosses, was in the middle of an attack animation as I exited my burst mode. So do keep in mind that when you are not invincible after the last frame that your burst mode is active, you can get killed the second you exit. And it would help quite a bit more to actually strategically think about using it, rather than, oh, I'm gonna die, let me use, and I have no healing, let me just use this burst skill. Speaking of healing, in this game it's fine. In this game it's fine until the last few bosses. Until the last few bosses, where the bosses are just so hyper aggressive that the healing feels really slow. Um, but we'll get to the bosses when I just have to reserve some judgment. Now, on to the other stuff. The dodging and parrying. Now, they have said where the dodging and the parrying specifically was a little bit strange, because the animation when you start to parrying, it's actually slightly slower than how it registers your parry. When you tap your parry, it registers it about a half second faster than your animation. And they said it didn't quite work. Oh, it didn't quite work with the whole parrying with the animation. It felt a little bit too weird, so they decided to go this route. This is also why, in my opinion, if you're going to do something like this, Bloodborne is the perfect example on how to have, if you want to have a quick reaction time to parrying, Bloodborne is the perfect example because you just shoot from a gun. You still have a Bloodborne, you still have a massive risk and reward where if you shoot, you can miss out on a heal. But like if you shoot and stun, you can heal, but if you're too far away when you parry, you aren't going to be able to get that massive damage. But if you're close, and if you miss the parry, you're fucked. And I think that's really if games want to start having, you know, different like more aggressive bosses, they really need to start going to really need to start going through the proper routes of extremely fast parrying. In certain sections of the game, you won't be able to use a melee weapon. And in those melee weapons, the game basically turns into a horror game. It turns into essentially Resident Evil. You do have to manage your ammo. You cannot neglect the drone. If you neglect the drone, you're screwing yourself over. Now the drone does have some cool abilities. That being said, I didn't find the drone to be particularly useful in certain sections, like outside of those sections. I didn't really find the drone to be particularly useful unless I was far away. I never really used it in a boss after this. However, there are two bosses at the end, very end of the game. I mean, the absolute final boss that I fought, and the boss before the final one. Both of them require you to use your gun, but other than that, no other boss in the game requires you to do that. It feels a little bit weird, but it does make sense, and I appreciate it. Before we talk about bosses, right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to, technically now, pass me to go through some of the outfits and my preferences with y'all. Hello everyone, this is Editing Me here. I'm going to be perfectly honest. The fucking audio from my actual system sounds like utter and complete shit, so I'm just going to override it here. Basically, so the rules I had for this, which, Torchic, I'm going to be showing Torchic's top 3 outfits. I'm going to show my top 5 to, show a little bit more of them. Also, I will be showing and explaining some of the specific specific ones that kind of don't have exactly a rule to them. Now, one rule is nude suit doesn't count. That's what you are seeing on screen currently. This new suit doesn't count. You can get it literally just by taking off the suit that she already has on. This doesn't count. This is not in Torchic's top 3. This is not even in my top 10, honestly, in terms of suits go. But this is sort of what it looks like. I am in New Game Plus at the start, so that shows y'all where I am for that sort of thing. And I'm not necessarily going to use the Planet 7 diving suits. So there is that. There are a couple of special outfits. There is Fluffy Bear, which you get from a quest. Torchic said this would have been probably in her top 3 if the ponytail wasn't there. For her, the ponytail throws it off. I really do like this one. It's not in my top 5 either, because also, so for me, the head size can get in the way sometimes, and that is just a personal issue for me. So, yeah, there's that suit. Also, an interesting detail that I find kind of funny is when you go to the suit and you zoom into the face, it's kind of hilarious because it's like soulless. But I do I kind of like that. Now, first things first here, we're the Blue Monsoon. So this one, you have to make sure, this is one that's not in either of our lists, but you have to make sure you complete 2 of the quests, and out of the bulletin board, which you'll reach at some point, you have to fully complete 2 of the quests there, and then you'll be able to pick up a quest called Where's My Item, and once you've picked up Where's My Item and finish that, another quest will pop up called Precious Treasure. You go and complete Precious Treasure and you'll reach that outfit box. You can get there beforehand, however, the primary issue with that is the fact that, you can't open it. So yeah, now we're gonna go ahead and move on to another costume that's not in either of our lists either. And that is the Black Pearl. Black Pearl might have made it up there, but there's other suits that are better than it, in my opinion. This is well worth the effort, though. In order to get this costume, you do need to get um, 49 cans. Need to find them. Now you can get the now when you reach the end last section of the game, you will actually be able to get it before the very end. So keep that in mind that yes, some of the cans, it might not appear you'll be able to go there, but you'll be able to get that suit before the end of the game. But I kind of like this one. It's not too shabby. Pretty great. Something that I did want to point out is she does look human in a lot of these outfits and not as robotic, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting touch. But yeah, there's that suit. And now up first is Torchic's number 3, the Stargazer suit. Something to keep in mind is I do not like any of the suits that Torchic chose, except for one I think is fine. But yeah, she likes this one. This is her number 3. I don't like the color yellow, and well, it's just not my style. I know it's risque and all, but in particular, I hate the boob window. I hate them. There is a white version, which I do think looks pretty clean, but I hate boob windows. In case I don't know, I am going to slap up an image of Urza from Fairy Tail, specifically after the Tartarus arc, with the goddamn boob window, and ever since then, I have despised boob windows. I've hated them. Um, but yeah, on to Torchic's number 2. Alrighty, and this is Torchic's number 2 outfit. This is the one that I actually don't necessarily mind. It's one of the better, like, modest looking outfits in my opinion. I do like the jean and, the sweater little combo. That this is her second favorite outfit. There's not particularly a special way to obtain it, so I don't need to point that out. Now her number 1. Her absolute favorite outfit is the Kill Bill reference, Sporty Yellow. And actually, funnily enough, on the back, on the shoulder, you can see Kill on it. This is a Kill Bill reference. I hate this suit because it's yellow. I don't like this color of yellow. I don't really think it fits Eve at all. I despise the color. But anyways, while we, show off the animations a little bit, then it's going to be time for my top 5. My top 5 are completely different than her top 3 or any of the suits that I mentioned. Every single suit that I've mentioned so far does not appear in my top 5. Anyway, so here is my 5th favorite suit. Alrighty though, this is my personal 5th favorite suit, the Raven suit. It would be a whole lot higher if it wasn't for that dangling thing that's under like the middle. I don't like that. If that was removed, this would probably be number 1 or number 2. I really do like this suit. I think the black and the white match pretty well, especially with the blue accents on it. I like it. It matches everything. You can only get this by beating the game and going into New Game Plus or starting a new game. That's the only way you can have access to the suit. You do have to beat the game. But I think it's a pretty good reward for beating the game on, as such of a difficulty that 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 whole thing was. But now it is time to move on from my number 5 suit and then move on to number 4. And my number 4 suit, also just a side note, that orange suit, it was the orange suit was Torchic's. She wanted me to try it out for a little bit, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I just don't like the gigantic bow. But my actual number 4 is the Cyber Magician. I like this one. I don't know, there's something kind of, you can get this early on. I like this one. It's pretty detailed, especially for when you get in the game. It's not that simple. I like it much better than the regular version, like the regular like Sweater Bunny version. But honestly, I don't mind that suit. So that was my number 4. My number 3 was pretty close, but I have to go with the black full dress. This is my absolute favorite outfit that has full coverage. This one is the one that I actually used for the final area. What I can say is that the white mixed with the red is so cool. I really like it. I don't know why the fuck I'm standing still in the system, but um, I really do enjoy. I like the little necklace around the edge. It does make her, in my opinion, look more curvier in the chest area in this skin, but honestly, I like the boots. It's like an adult version of like a schoolgirl quote unquote outfit, but I love the red. And when you get this outfit, it is in a white area, so I think it really fits well with the area, and it is one of my favorite ones that has like full coverage. But now on to number two. Number two is the Orca Exploration Suit. This one you can get extremely early on, and I mean extremely early on. The only reason why this suit is not number one, no, the only reason why the suit is at number two and the black red dress is not at number two is because I used the Orca suit for the majority of my playthrough. Pretty much the first half of the game, I only used this. I didn't find the rest of the skins until much later, the outfits until much later. But I enjoy it. I do like the detail of the what would normally be leggings is sort of like armor plating, like body armor plating, which I like. It has a jacket. It's pretty cool. I almost didn't use it, but Torchic kind of pushed me to use it, and honestly, it looks pretty good. Now it's time to move on to my favorite outfit in Stellar Blade, and I do have reasons for it, mostly due to the color of it, and I was kind of deceived. And my number one is actually the prototype planet diving suit. It's the green one. It's the only suit that actually has a tail, which is one of the reasons why I like it. It reminds me of a satyr. Torchic said to her it looked like something different, but I don't remember what it was. But I like green. Green's my favorite color. In particular, that shade of green is my favorite. So that's why I like the suit. Now, I wasn't originally going to start using it. However, the game sets you up to go a certain place, but you don't exactly go there. So I just had this on, and I eventually started to like it. I just love the green heel. Legs like stand out a lot, and the tail doesn't get in the way, unlike the long ass hair does. But yeah, those are my personal top five favorites. Those are Torchic's top three favorite suits and outfits. All right, now that he's chatted y'all up for a little while, maybe rizzed y'all up or whatever, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about the bosses. Then I'm gonna talk about narrative. Again, no spoilers here. Most of the bosses are going to be kept vague. There are a couple of bosses that I am going to be able to mention. There's going to be one in particular that I will mention, and I do have some gripes with certain bosses. Again, no spoilers. Now, what I don't really like is okay, there's essentially mini bosses and actual bosses. Mini bosses, some of them appear later on as regular enemies, but some of them don't. It doesn't make much sense how some do and some don't. I don't really like it. It's more so the case of really in the first half of the game where well, no, not really. There's one mini boss that appears two times. Once when you see him first and then once after that, but I'm not sure if that counts. There's one boss in particular though. Is after you fight a really, really major boss. Shortly after the optional area, you do find him again. It doesn't make much sense why that boss is here, especially in the damaged state that you left him in, but technically he's dead. That one did not make much sense to me at all. But that boss, as y'all be seeing in the background, was fucking annoying. This boss is not the worst, but it is one of the worst bosses. If you can get past this one, you're good. But god damn, this boss was a pain in the ass, especially early on. But like he would constantly spam dodge moves. The yellow flashing isn't really helpful. It really isn't that helpful because sometimes it's delayed where you see the yellow flash and then you have to wait a second, or the yellow flash is so unreactable with the move that it feels like Godric levels of unreactable. In case I don't know what I'm referencing, one of Godric's moves in particular, he waves his axe up and lifts up wind. that move, frame-wise, is actually faster than the average human reaction speed. So on average, most people cannot actually react to that move. So that's what I'm meaning Godric speeds. This is something that you do have to keep in mind for certain bosses, because unreactable moves do actually exist. Godric is probably the most prominent example of, and one of the rare instances where a boss has had a move where the human eye in general cannot react to it. So, as explaining that, this boss really does feel like its timings are all over the place. Also, it spams, I don't know what's it with the AI with it, but this boss spams the same move over and over and over again sometimes. My tip for newer people going through Stellar Blade, I like how I'm saying this is if it's like, you know, live service game. If you're going to this game for the first time, you need to stay close to the boss. This rule can be applied to almost all of the bosses, but generally speaking, you want to be close to them because then they'll start using range shit and they will start spamming it. My gripe with this is once that distance has been created, it's pretty difficult to close that distance with some bosses because they just spam it so often. That is my biggest issue with that sort of style. Now, while being indescript, the final two bosses are terrible. If y'all get to the boss that I'm talking about, and you will know what I'm talking about when you fight him. If you think that boss is bad in any way, shape, or form, prepare your booty cheeks for the final two. The final third is because I fought three bosses at the end. Well, I fought more than that, but I mean, anyways, without making things complicated, the final three bosses it's unfortunate because the three of them follow up one of the best bosses in gaming, not just Stellar Blade, but one of the coolest bosses that I have ever fought in gaming. Like, oh my god, such a cool boss. I really do hope that they add like a boss rush or boss select mode, because man, that boss was so cool, so good. Oh my god, I really enjoyed that boss. And then it's followed up by the third of the final three. Well, the first of the final three, and it was kind of mid. I struggle with it quite a bit, specifically because of that burst move is fucking ass. And it doesn't deal enough damage. I do think with how aggressive those final three bosses are, their health needs to come down. I don't think for the first of the final three, but the final two, which is the bosses I had the most gripes with, their health needs to come the fuck down. And if their health doesn't come down, the amount of damage that's outputted from them is absurd. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would keep the health the same, but reducing their damage to where if you happen to get hit while taking a vial, it doesn't completely nullify that healing potion. Because there's nothing worse, because some of the healing items, you have four, they're actually using four in total, but realistically that fourth one you should never use because it's a stationary fucking healing. Three of them, two out of the rest of the three are consumable, and you have to buy them again. Now, that being said, it's not a pain in the ass to, you know, buy them or whatever, because they're pretty darn cheap. At least later on, when you have a bunch of money. My biggest issue is sometimes, if you forget to go into that fight without getting those items, you're fucked. You're fucked. Because sometimes sometimes it's extremely hard to tell whether or not a boss has, especially the final two, whether or not the boss has an opening for you to heal or not, which aggressive bosses only really work in Bloodborne because of the rally mechanic, which Stellar Blade doesn't have, and personally, I would prefer it. Just to really incentivize aggression and parrying, or something like, you know, parrying after taking damage heals you, or something like that. Storm Bradley gas mechanic would work really well with Stellar Blade and would put it over the top. The only reason why kind of a healing thing like Stellar Blade and other games like it have is because bosses need to have clear windows when you can heal. Like, this is something I praise Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 for, is for most bosses, there are clear opportunities to heal. Clear opportunities to heal. And Stellar Blade for the final two bosses, sometimes it can be unclear due to, especially in the later stages of their fights, it's kind of confusing to tell which move is going to come out exactly. And dear God, the final one that I fought was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Because they took the Elden Ring route, and some of the attacks are ridiculously like pulled back. And it's not just one of them; it's a lot, and some of them are in the same combo string. But the issue with it is that combo string the boss does, it can either end with 1-2 or 1-2 and delayed 3-4. And there is no discernible difference. The final two bosses are terrible, which sucks because the previous two before that, one of which is, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And those of you that know what I'm talking about, you know exactly which boss I'm talking about. So I'm going to wrap it up for bosses. And now on to the narrative. Now I know so far it has sounded like, it's kind of been negative. It has kind of been a little bit negative so far. But narrative speakingly, non-spoiler wise, the narrative is really good. Is it absolute S tier, like top of the line, creme de la creme? No. I have a few gripes with a couple of the story points. Um, in a non-spoiler way, the best I can describe it is there are two events in the story, specifically with two characters that don't really have any lead up to them. That's about as much as I can say. Is like two events of theirs come kind of out of nowhere. The major, big one because one of them is in relation to a secret area, but another one is imperative to the story, but is not really set up that well. But everything else, the world building is absolutely fantastic. It is Bloodborne levels, and how Bloodborne has item descriptions. The story of a particular area is told through the bodies that you find and the little textings that they have. And there is a decent amount of lore and story with the quests. And I do like that there's a quest tab. Areas would be way too confusing without it. This is from a narrative perspective. This game is really good. I would give it a grade A. I am going to talk a little bit about the concepts here because some of the concepts that it brings up are sort of similar to Bloodborne. This is why I really think this game is closer to Bloodborne. It has aggressive bosses. There's dodging. There's parrying or whatever. You can do both, but it's mostly closer to Bloodborne because of the narrative. Now, a lot of people were talking about. So, Starblade had a couple of controversies, right? One was how the female protagonist was hot, or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. For me, Nier looking the way she was didn't really matter necessarily. Bayonetta was, I'm a bad bitch, sweeter than molasses. I can't believe I just said that. but, so then there's Bayonetta, which I've never played a Bayonetta game. Eve is a lot closer to a Tomb Raider as far as the main character just happens to be conventionally attractive. Eve is a lot more, she's gentler, if that makes sense. She's more gentler, and in terms of personality, she's a little bit closer to 2B. It's kind of she's so unique that she does separate herself quite a bit from everything else. Just a side note, the English dubbing, Eve is great. I hated Lily. Adam was fine. Now, all three of those names are not spoilers due to the fact that, one, you start off with Adam, and Lily you meet very early on, and she's in the trailers. So, I'm also not a particularly huge fan that whenever there's a Japanese game or Korean or in any Asian game that comes out that Sony dubs, it's just all of a sudden just British. I have never liked that. It made sense for Elden Ring because Castle's European or whatever, right? Bloodborne, it made sense because Victorian England. But for this game, it doesn't really make much sense. And this might be one of those few instances where I probably might prefer the Korean dub. So there's that. If I do play the game on the channel, it will probably be in the Korean dub, to be perfectly honest. Eve was the only one that I really did enjoy as with her voice acting. Now the church themes was the second controversy. The church themes I see, but it's not really a controversy, and the reason why I was sucked on the rug because really I saw almost no connection to this between this and like Christianity specifically. Like this really could have been tied to almost any other monodeity or single god religion. This literally could have been attached to almost any of them. With Bloodborne, it was a lot more direct, but it also wasn't exactly a commentary on religion. It was more so a commentary on transcendence, which Stellar Blade is more so a commentary on what exactly is being human. And not getting into any spoiler stuff, which a lot of the stuff I have to really kind of work my way around to avoid spoilers. It kind of, after playing, especially during certain sections of this game, it kind of makes you think, especially after receiving certain revelations and everything. You start to think, how are we different than, like, how what makes humans just us different than anything else? Is it intelligence? Well, no, because eventually technology might supersede our intelligence. For example, your phone. Google as a search engine and can pull up more information than what most of us have. So in that respect, that would be smarter than us. Is smarter in every aspect? No. And then you might think, well, we breathe, eat, and sleep. Well, no. Well, then that technically would mean things like birds, gorillas, and I don't know why I said gorillas, and then like lizards and snakes, and they live, breathe, and eat the same thing we do. Well, okay, maybe it's maybe it's our morals. Well, in case you didn't know, some robots are starting to be programmed to have some sort of moral compass. Like they're able to discern between right and wrong. So what makes us human? And in my opinion, I think that special thing that makes us human and differentiates us from everything is how wide our range of emotions are. In combination with our compass of morals, our moral compass. Because if you train a robot to discern from right and wrong, well, there might be some little details sprinkled in that might complicate the situation, and that robot wouldn't necessarily just be like, "Oh, this person's wrong, take him to jail." But he was because he stole some peanut butter and jelly. Well, he was poor. But in that robot's eyes, it might not necessarily, might just say, "Oh, just toss him away anyways. He did something wrong." But it's like, well, he was poor, so let's fix that root issue so that doesn't happen again. And that's kind of an interesting conversation that I think think Stellar Blade brings up, but it's kind of being swept under the rug underneath the rest of the stuff. Because I do think it's interesting in the ways, well, what makes us, like us humans, us? And it's sort of that level of commentary that I do really enjoy. It's something that I really liked in Bloodborne. It's nowhere near as deep as Bloodborne's Transcendence of Humanity was, but that sort of theme is there in Stellar Blade. I can't say much about it though because it is spoilery. Um, so here's where I'm gonna wrap it up here for y'all. I'm gonna get, and also something I forgot to mention: music. Music is phenomenal. There are some instances where I think the music is misplaced. Like the second to last boss, the music is pretty jarring. But my favorite boss, just I can't. I just bro, I want to mention it so badly, but I can't. Has absolutely phenomenal music. It is so different than everything else. I saw it and I was like, oh my god, what is this? So there's just so utterly amazing. The music in this game is pretty good. I believe it is on Spotify. I think that's what my girlfriend said. It was on Spotify. Now, also, if y'all are new to the channel and, are hearing it pretty strange as far as, think it's strange that my girlfriend is like, okay, whatever with me playing Stellar Blade or whatever. And she sometimes watches me. It's kind of the relationship we have nowadays. There are games like Stellar Blade that I'll play or Nier Automata I'll play. There are a couple of hidden games that I do play on a regular basis, but I'm gonna save that for maybe a subscriber special down the road. Because I do have some games that none of y'all would ever be able to predict that I play that I actually do. And she plays the same games. So that's just a little bit no. But in terms of creature and character design, I gotta give this an A. They hit it out of the ballpark. There aren't really any creature designs that I particularly disliked. In terms of music, it is getting an A. It's getting an A. And there is no S here. There's just F for failing, A for 100%. Music is an A minus for me. And in terms of story, I would give the story about a B. The only reason why it would be a B is specifically because of the fact that, you know, some of the plot points are obvious, well, you can kind of see coming, but some of them just have zero setup at all, or not enough. In terms of gameplay, I gotta give it an A. It's really solid. There are minor issues, so it would be an A minus technically, but all in all, really solid, especially for the recent games that have came out. And that was an issue that I had with Atomic Heart as far as the mailing does not feel good to use for the most part. Now, time to answer the question that I asked at the beginning, if y'all remember. Is Stellar Blade worth platinuming? And again, I could just, do the whole YouTuber shebang to drive, comments or whatever and be like, well, comment what y'all, do y'all think it is? I'll let y'all decide in the comments below. But I don't do that shit. Alright? To give context here, to this day, there are only about 5 games, I believe, that I have platinumed. It's very small. I mean, especially in relation to the amount of games that I play. Some games I really love, but I just don't platinum due to them having multiple difficulty modes, like Doom and Witcher 3. But my platinums are Destiny 2, which I still play to this day, as y'all know, which I've been playing for almost 3 years now. Damn. Bloodborne, Spider-Man 2, and Remnant 2. I don't have the DLCs platinumed, but I have the base game platinumed. And I think I have one more, but I don't remember what it is. So that's your context for that. In my opinion, Stellar Blade is platinum worthy. I do think it is platinum worthy. The platinum, based on the trophies that I've looked at, it is not that difficult to do. If all you do is you do all the optional side quests, don't do the only do the builds and boards you need to, and you find all the cans, you'll basically end the game at around 57%. The platinum's not that hard to do. And for New Game Plus, it's all it is just unlocking all 20 suits and beating it. That's it. But I did really enjoy this game. I do believe it is platinum worthy. I do sort of agree with the Metacritic being 82. In my opinion, I would have pushed it up to an 85, just because I like multiples of fives and zeros. Don't worry about that. But especially considering that even if this was not this studio's first AAA game, I'd have been like, damn, this is pretty good. But considering that this is the studio's first AAA game, and before this they were making mobile games, like Nikke, and I think the one before that was Destiny something or whatever. Nikke is the one that's currently ongoing. But this is absolutely phenomenal. Absolute phenomenal. Phenomenal. The other one that I do know of that it was the studio's first was Atomic Heart. That was Mundfish's thing. And I do think Stellar Blade is better than Atomic Heart. Even without the Atomic Heart DLCs, and I hate the Atomic Heart DLCs. I really do not like them. I despise them. That's why I have not covered any of them on the channel because I despise them that much. One of the one of them is good in other ways, terrible in some ways, and the other one is the reverse. Everything that was good about the other is bad. And everything that was bad about this one is good in the other. It's just how it is. The Stellar Blade, all in all, is really good. In terms of the future of this game, pretty much the director said if the fans want it, we'll try our best to do it. There is no photo mode, and I'm kind of scared of people. First off, I'm kind of terrified of the Stellar Blade community already, because, like, people are starting to do. First off, nude speedruns are kind of already a thing, but then some people, when the demo was out and the boss challenge was there, some fucking people had the audacity to do like boob cam. So they would have the camera on the ground facing upward, and I was just like, what the fuck? You can't even see the boss. What the hell are you doing? If they had a photo mode, I'd be even more terrified. But I would personally enjoy a photo mode because some of the environments, yes, the environments, just some of them look so cool that I would definitely like to try to use some of them as thumbnails. But there are no microtransactions. Um, I got the deluxe edition, even though I don't like the skins for it. I definitely want to support the devs and make it known that hey, I do enjoy this game. Um, I really did. I'm scared if it comes to PC. I won't play it on PC though. Might crash and burn my PC. But I do hope there's a sequel. In terms of plot wise, non spoiler wise, non spoiler. Room is left for a sequel. There are some unanswered things, but they are so minute, and the questions aren't really popped up until the end that it doesn't really matter. Like, I could see there's a little bit of room for a sequel, but if there wasn't a sequel, the game is fine on its own. And I will say, one thing I'm not a huge fan of is you can accidentally get what is generally considered to be the best ending, which is what I got on accident. Especially if you explore a lot. You have to actively avoid some exploration things, which is kind of unfortunate in order to get a couple of the endings. And meanwhile, at what I don't like is you can kind of happen your way to the best ending. Meanwhile, in Bloodborne, you had to actively work towards it. In Elden Ring, the Stage of the Stars ending, Age of the Stars ending, which is my preferred ending, you have to work for it. Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, probably has the most amount of work because if you screw it up in the beginning, you're screwed out of that ending. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the game. I do think it's platinum worthy. Let me know if y'all agree with this sort of idea of platinum. Is it platinum worthy? If y'all think that's a little bit better, then that sort of thing. Again, let me know in the comments if y'all would like to see a New Game Plus playthrough of the game, in which I would wear a different suit every single episode. Uh, so yeah, let me know if y'all would like that, and or if y'all would just rather have a spoiler review for the game. As on that note, let me know what y'all think in the comments below, and I will catch y'all on the flip side.
이겼어. 굉장해.
알파 네이티브는 아니었어.